Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start right out with the word of the day. If you're just new to our show, first of all, welcome. But one of the things we do is that we try to put out a word or phrase of the day, and then I magically, like Lucky Charms, so to speak, spin it through the story. I put my own spin on it. So my word of the day is disingenuous. The definition I've chosen describes behavior that's not totally honest or sincere. Basically, it describes the progressive party and the progressive movement of the Democratic Party and the mainstream media. That would be a sub-definition. My title today, my first story, is about none other than AOC. Imagine that, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And this is coming to you from the Washington Examiner. My subtitle to it is Disingenuous, Dishonesty, or Just Dumb. AOC blew Amazon out of New York in 2019 over tax breaks, but demanded one for herself in 2012. Do say. In other words, she wanted something that she's against for other people. Imagine that. Freshman Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Democrat from New York, who regularly lambasts Republicans, got a little tickle in my throat. A lot of pollen coming in the air here. It's springtime in Florida. But she regularly lambasts Republicans over tax cuts and helped scuttle a plan by Amazon to locate in New York City because she opposed tax breaks the company might receive. So she opposed tax breaks. Well, that's not necessarily... All you would ask for really is consistency, right? But I don't think you're going to get it. Costing the city an estimated 25,000 jobs. Sought a tax break for herself in 2012 so she could launch her own company. Imagine that. As it turns out, Ocasio-Cortez, see, a lot of people be surprised, like the articles like, she was for one thing and now she was something else. There's a perfect explanation for this beyond just human nature. She's a communist. She is a little communist. And in order to be a communist leader, I've been saying this quite often, but if I say it, it bears repeating. You have to have one major skill set to be a perfect little communist leader. And that starts at the very core of it is do what I say, not what I do. Don't worry about what I'm doing, man. I got the plan, the 5-year plan, the Green New Deal plan, whatever plan, the plan that's going to help us live more than 12 years. I got this. Don't worry. It's over here. You do this. Meanwhile, I'm over here partying like in 1999. I don't care. So she's the perfect little communist. Ocasio-Cortez, who graduated from Boston University in 2011, today calls herself a democratic socialist. This is according to the article here in the Washington Examiner. But in 2012, she was a businesswoman seeking tax benefits for her startup, Brook Avenue Press, which published books and circular for children in the Bronx. So she was trying to help children so she could help herself. Ocasio-Cortez said in 2012 in a news release, plenty of entrepreneurs have started their businesses on a shoestring. She walked out of her shoes, by the way. And any break they receive means more flexibility for future growth. Now, maybe in fairness to Ocasio-Cortez, maybe she just doesn't understand the meaning of a tax break. Maybe she really doesn't get it. There's a hypocrisy. Do what I say, not what I do. Hypocrisy is like at the center of communism, by the way. So maybe she's like, hey, I was trying to get this, but now I understand tax breaks. And even though I tried to apply for one, it really wasn't right for Amazon. So I have come to my senses and done away with it. So maybe she doesn't understand it because after all, if you go back and look at what she said when she was criticized for basically doing away with the Amazon deal. Because remember, Amazon, they didn't say her name specifically, but they said that Amazon said they decided to pull out of New York because they had resistance from political leaders and they didn't want to start off the deal that way. And I'm paraphrasing it a bit, but that's what they said. And what everybody knows is it was because Ocasio-Cortez made a big deal about it. But remember, in her response to the criticism of losing 25,000 jobs, she famously basically said, well, the city of New York was going to give Amazon $8 billion in various forms of tax breaks. So maybe we could use that money, that $8 billion in tax breaks, to create jobs. Like there's just $8 billion just sitting here. I mean, give me a break. She obviously doesn't understand. There is no $8 billion. You don't get $8 billion in tax breaks unless there's something paying taxes. So she's just crazy. But so maybe she doesn't understand. But wait a minute. Let's go on with the art. Billy Bob tells me, hey, I might be off track here because I'm trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. If you haven't met my sidekick, Billy Bob Bass, he kind of keeps me on track here as well as Jay in the back, who you'll hear from time to time. Good morning, Jay.
Morning, John.
But we have both had Twitter handles here. Billy Bob Bass is at Billy Bob Bass 1 and mine is at John Martin Talks. But Billy Bob lets me know that maybe I got this wrong. So let's go back to the article, which is what he's always trying to get me to do, and let's see what Ocasio-Cortez says. She says a tax break could mean part-time work for someone else or keeping a business's doors open long enough to turn a profit. Young entrepreneurs, this is AOC's words, young entrepreneurs are playing a special role in developing promising creative enterprises for our future, and a small break can open up their resources for hiring, creating a new product, or reinvesting in the local economy. She sounded like, back then, in 2012, she sounded like a little capitalist in the making, right? What happened to her? I mean, that chick, that gal, I could maybe support and at least listen to, but the one now is slightly different. Ocasio-Cortez, back to the article, was one of several Bronx-based entrepreneurs and startup advocates quoted in the release put out by Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr. and none other than, wait for it, Senator Christine Gillibrand, Democrat from New York, in support for the proposed Small Business Startup and Support Act. The bill would have increased deductions for startup costs from $5,000 to $10,000. I said, what happened? I mean, what happened? This is Christine Gillibrand, man. She sounds like she's a little capitalist too. Well, what happened to Christine Gillibrand? No, I mean, really, what happened to her? Because I hadn't heard squat from her. Where the heck has she been, man? She must be like she must be riding a really small jackass, because I hadn't heard a peep about her. She hadn't even made the news lately, man. So what happened about her? What happened to her? Maybe we need to put Christian Gillibrand's Democratic campaign on a milk carton. Have you seen this? But here's a side note for you. I'm talking about the 2020 race. Let me take a little, want you on my side of the wall. People are always asking me about my coffee cup. But I got a little side note for you. I was watching Morning Joe or Schmo today. He wasn't on there. He must have got whipped pretty hard by Mika overnight, but he wasn't on there. But they were gushing all about Butt Edge. I get his name, Pete, Mayor Pete. Let's just say that he was in Iowa yesterday, and lo and behold, he was giving a speech and he got heckled. Oh my God, the man got heckled. Now, I haven't seen the video, but apparently he got heckled for being gay and chastised for, because apparently he was preaching about God and everything else, and somebody said something about it, and he got heckled about being in a gay marriage. Now, this guy, as I say, I guess I should just call him Mayor Pete, because to me, I look at this, they say the booty get or butt get, something, but I don't know. I get confused about that. But he's become the new poster child for the Democratic Party, apparently, because he's done so well. And so Morning Joe is just talking on and on and on about, here's what they've been doing lately on all these shows. All these leftist media shows, they throw them out there. They throw somebody out as the flavor of the day and see if they stick. Remember, it was Kamala Harris, man. Kamala Harris, she had like this big rally and everything, and Morning Joe was they were the Kamala, and CNN was basically the KNN, the Kamala News Network. But all of a sudden she's faded a bit, and now everybody is all high on butt get, man. But let me tell you, aside from the fact he may be well-spoken and everything else, I don't know what his idea is. He never seems to have an idea other than he's a better Christian than Pence or Trump is. I mean, that seems kind of interesting. But he's talking all this nonsense, and he's basically saying, I'm gay, you know, that kind of thing. But let me tell you, and this, I mean no offense to short people. I'm going to say that right now, because I was going to play that no place for short people, but you know, that would be insensitive, and I don't want. I've got short people in my audience, and I appreciate them. But the reality is, this dude is close to like 5'2" or something, and I just don't think that. Hey, this is, you want to talk about believing science? Well, study the science of political races and tell me when the shortest guy in the room actually won. I mean, contrary to what's happening on Game of Thrones, the shortest people don't always rise to the top. Okay, now, and I hope they do, so I'm not prejudiced about this. But he's very short. And so, you know, I got to thinking about this. How would he compare to Trump? Because Trump's a big guy. Let's assume, for the sake of a conversation, that Butt-Get wins this thing, and it becomes him and Trump. It's going to be interesting to see them. Well, Billy Bob tells me that that Trump and Butt-Get have actually met in the past. You remember that President Trump was trolling around with WWE, the World Wrestling Enterprise or Association, right, with McMahon, and he famously took him down. Well, apparently he met that I didn't know that Mayor Butt-Get was also messing with WWE, and apparently there is a picture that will show the contrast between President Trump and Butt Edge or whatever his name is if they get on the stage. It's kind of interesting. Can we show that picture? There it is. There's President Trump, and there's Butt Edge standing side by side backstage at the WWE. I didn't realize they had met. Now, that's going to make an interesting debate stage. In all honesty and fairness, that is the one and only Andre the Giant. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know who the other dude is. He's meat, that's for sure, but Andre. I actually had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Andre the Giant back in the day, and he was a magnificent specimen of a man, I can tell you that. Anyway, back to the focus of the story. Ocasio-Cortez was a fierce critic of the planned Amazon headquarters in New York. She's the main reason they pulled out. This is what she said here about Amazon. Amazon, at the time, Amazon is a billion-dollar company. The idea that it will receive hundreds of millions, and it actually was in the billions, of dollars in tax breaks at a time when our subway is crumbling and our communities need more investment, not less, it is extremely concerning to the residents here. Now this is the Ocasio-Cortez we have all come to love, because she has no understanding of economics. Apparently I don't know where, she must have been hanging out as a barista at Boston University as opposed to attending economics classes, which she got a degree for, because she may be very bright, but when she talks, she don't put much light out there. It's estimated, check this out, she's always talking about, you know, she's doing these Twitter twat stuff about and Instagram about being for the working people, and she was a little old bartender, and now I've come to Congress, and hey, I used to attend bars, so I'm all for it. I'm all for people, right? The American dream really is what she's lived, although she doesn't want to talk about that. But all of these bartenders, waiters, waitresses, dishwashers she's talking about defending, which, hey, I'm all for that. But think about this. It is estimated that with Amazon coming in with the level of pay they were going to pay people, 25,000 jobs now, so do the math on this, that there would have been a trickle down, if you want, or a downhill flow of jobs, as many as 4 jobs created for every Amazon job that came. Do the math on that, man. Wow. Ocasio-Cortez, you're on to something there. Get rid of Amazon. They're going to help the people I love. Well, I got an idea for you, Ocasio. Let me just tell you right now, I actually believe that you should go way beyond where you are now. I'm going to start today, and this may be a shock to you, but I'm very sincere about this. I'm very sincere. I haven't even told Billy Bob or Jay or anybody here about this. I want to start today a movement, a campaign, if you will, Ocasio-Cortez for the next Speaker of the House of Representatives. Right now, I'm not talking about waiting until 2020 because he may be out by then. But right now, Ocasio-Cortez needs to rise up. Captain Whitebread is ready to take you to the top, girl. This lady needs to be the current Speaker of the House of Representatives, unless you heard it here first. When Amazon announced it was pulling its headquarter plans in New York City, Ocasio-Cortez cheered the move, saying that corporate greed and worker exploitation had been defeated. Ocasio-Cortez for Speaker, because only can you say worker exploitation when they were going to make, like, the average job was going to pay like $125K. That's a hell of an exploitation. And corporate greed, they were going to help create as many as 25,000 jobs, and do the math, 4 downhill jobs. Last I checked, man, that's like 125,000 more jobs. So the corporate greed and worker exploitation has been defeated. Hallelujah. AOC for Speaker, baby. Ocasio-Cortez has in the past referred to Republican tax proposals as a scam. It's a scam.
If you didn't realize, this is satire.
Yeah, don't turn that thing. It's satire. Yeah, it is. But really and truly, wouldn't we be better served if she was Speaker? Because Nancy's not doing anything anyway. At least this chick's exposing how crazy, the batshit crazy the left really is.
I mean, they both got mental problems.
Yep. Well, you know, and I don't think she's had any work done yet. She ain't going to be melting. Like, poor old Nancy, man. I mean, is she? I guess that's why she takes all them government flights back and forth that cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars, because she don't want to be out in the sun, because she'll be what? Melting. But I asked Ocasio-Cortez about this tax scam. Have you told Bernie yet that? Have you told? Because apparently Bernie is all about the taxes. We saw that we played that yesterday. If you hadn't seen our show from yesterday, go back and check it out. The easiest way is go directly to like John Martin Talks Facebook page, johnmartintalks.tv, or even our YouTube channel, John Martin Talks. Like and share it far and wide. And we appreciate everybody who's listening on the various networks like Citizens for Trump and Deplorable Resistance. We appreciate all that. And by the way, if you want to be a part of our show, if you have a Facebook page out there that you'd like to have our show on, just contact us. We're open to expanding. We're capitalists here, man. We're ready to expand. But so I asked Ocasio-Cortez in sincerity, have you told Bernie about this? And here's another question I was just pondering. Why hasn't Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez formally endorsed her mentor, so to speak, of Bernie Sanders? Because they worked together on the campaign trail. They were here in Florida. Thank God they weren't successful campaigning for Andrew Gillum, the worst mistake this state would have ever and did not make, by the way. Thank you very much. But they were together, weren't they? Well, I can tell you, and if you hadn't heard this before, you can go back and listen to the podcast, but Ocasio-Cortez, I got a feeling why she hadn't supported Bernie right off the bat is because Bernie, guess what, for all you Bernites out there, Bernie didn't support her. Bernie, the outsider, was the insider and supported the guy that was been there since Methuselah. That he supported the establishment figure that she defeated. And it wasn't until after she won that Bernie jumped on board. Because Bernie, I hate to break it to you guys out there, Bernie, you can't be in politics for 40-some years and not be an establishment figure. Bernie is part of the swamp. Believe that. He ain't going to drain it. That's for sure. But getting back to the story, Ocasio-Cortez has also been critical of Republicans' latest tax plan, which includes the tax deduction proposal she supported back in 2012 when her company would have benefited from it. So she is opposed to what she was asking for. Perfect little communist. The House GOP wants to add, this is Ocasio-Cortez's words, the House GOP wants to add another $2.4 trillion in tax cuts after already cutting $2 trillion in taxes on corporations and the very rich last December. She said, you ever notice how no one asked the GOP how they're going to pay for it? Talking about the tax cuts, Ocasio said the tweet last fall. So, I love this term. You always hear the Democrats, I've even heard some Republicans say this about tax cuts. How are you going to pay for it? Now, is that disingenuous, dishonest, or just dumb? You pay for tax cuts. The tax cuts it's not like It's giving you your money back. They're talking about your money. Yeah, so it's one. How you gonna pay for it? Well, hell, the same way we pay for everything. Government pays for nothing. That's a fact. Government pays for nothing. Government prints the money, but it's your money that the government does things with. Good, bad, or whatever. It's not the government's money, it's yours. So how you going to pay for it is ridiculous. Anytime someone asks for tax cuts, how you going to pay for it? Well, that's up to you to figure that out. How you going to pay for it? You might pay for it by cutting some of the ridiculous, as the president might say, some of the ridiculous bullshit you've been spending my money on for all these years. How about that? It's just, just a thought. All right, we're going to move on. But you like to check AOC for speaker. Yeah, man. Sincere. I'm sincere. Speaker. Right now. Today. Make her speaker today. I mean, I'd love to have my Congressman Ted Yoho be speaker, but he's not going to get the votes. She might get the votes. This next article comes to you from none other than the New York Times. And my subtitle for this is Disingenuously Complicated. For Democrats, Ilhan Omar is a complicated figure to defend, according to the New York Times. When President Trump tweeted an edited video portraying Representative Ilhan Omar as playing down the 9/11 attacks, it took less than 3 hours for Senator Bernie Sanders to rush to her defense and declare her, this is Bernie's words, a leader with strength and courage. So Bernie, man, he's on your side. Ilhan Omar, you got this guy. Bernie has got your back, baby. He said she had a lead, but when a Fox News anchor described to Mr. Sanders on Monday night's town hall meeting, we talked about that yesterday, that he was a staunch supporter of Ilhan Omar. Now he just called her a leader with strength and courage, right? That's pretty staunch support. Mr. Bernie Sanders, this pillar of Aragon of virtue or whatever, and he's got her back. He had something slightly different to say. Let's play a little snippet of that video from the other night.
You are looking to become the first Jewish president. Yep. You're also a staunch supporter of Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who even...
Hold it. No. I've talked to Ilhan about twice in my life, so...
But you've tweeted support.
But this is what I do support. I support a Muslim member of Congress not to be attacked every single day in outrageous racist remarks.
He said, so he's like, what? Wait a minute. I mean, he had a couple of those moments in there when they asked him, why don't you go ahead and pay the 52% tax rate that you're advocating for? You could volunteer to pay. I paid the tax. And now, hey, you're a strong supporter. He literally said, let's go back to this. He said that Omar was a leader with strength and courage. And now he's like, he's kind of like, well, there's a story in the Bible about that. I don't know him. 3 times. I wonder if he's going to say it 3 times about Omar. Because she's like their Jesus Christ to this group, right? She can walk on water, literally. And so they're like, deny me 3 times before the cock crows. Well, he didn't even wait till the cock crowed before he was like, I hardly know that girl. I don't know her. God bless her. I don't know her. But he goes on in that clip, man, to say that what I am for, because he wants to change the thing, is I'm for a Muslim member of Congress that's not under constant attack with racist, hateful remarks. Wow. So Ilhan Omar, that's basically been talking about driving Israel to the sea, that has been supporting Hamas, and Hamas is supporting her. That's why I call her a terrorist, which she is. I mean, this gal who's basically saying somebody did something somewhere, and when she's talking about 9/11, those aren't racist, hateful remarks. She's not attacking anyone except truth, justice, in the American way. But say that, hey, you're wrong. It was a little bit bigger than you thought. You're racist. You're hateful. You're disrespectful. But Bernie's not alone in this reaction to Omar or his struggles. He's struggling, according to the New York Times, like a lot of Democrats. They're struggling. They're struggling with Omar and what's her name, Tlaib. And Tlaib is coming here on Easter Sunday to do a fashion show at University of Florida. We'll probably talk more about that later, but on another show. But it's, you know, all these people, Ocasio-Cortez and everything else. I mean, they're struggling. They're struggling. But think about it, Bernie. Pelosi said there's only 5. So just get rid of them 5. I say make OSC Speaker, but that's just me. But his reaction, according to the New York Times, reflects the broader Democratic Party's conflicted embrace of Miss Omar. They don't seem conflicted to me. That struggle has especially been apparent in the House, where Jewish Democrats have tangled with Miss Omar and Democratic leaders have grappled with how to handle the freshman Democrat from Minnesota, who is one of the first 2 Muslim women elected to Congress. How to handle her? I got a radical idea of how to handle her. Why not simply condemn her and call her what she is, an anti-Semitic terrorist? That's what she is. That would be radical, just to call a spade a spade. Call a jackass a jackass. Call it for what it is. Say the emperor has no clothes. Stand up and be counted. Here, for God's sakes, Bernie, you want to be president and you don't know how to handle this person? I mean, give me a break. That should be a litmus test, really, by the way, how to handle Omar. You don't need to handle her when she says her ridiculous, as President Trump would say, bullshit. You just need to call her on it. Don't hem and haw. Don't put your finger to the wind and go, what are the poll numbers? Stand on something called virtue. Stand on something called integrity. Stand on something called honest principles. Maybe the struggle really is not how to handle that. It's that you don't have a foundation of the basic principles of the founding of this country. Maybe that is the Democrats' problem, not how to handle Ilhan Omar, but they have no moral compass, no base foundation. Just a thought. When Ms. Omar, 36, pushed for a House rules change to permit her to wear her hijab on the House floor, she was heralded as a powerful symbol of the Democratic Party's inclusiveness. What? Well, I mean, really, this is the New York Times. I want to make sure you understand. This is what the New York Times is saying. Herald as a party's inclusive. Hijab is just the opposite of that. All you got to do is go back and look at one of my previous shows. I did a great interview with a lady named Annie Cyrus. Probably one of the easiest ways is go to YouTube and check it out on the YouTube channel. There's an excluded YouTube channel as well. And look at that interview I did with her, because she put it flat out. She did I asked her specifically about Omar, and this is before a lot of the nonsense she said. Really, she's exposing what's really in her heart, and that's the problem the Democrats have, because it's the truth, and they don't know how to handle the truth. But Annie would tell you flat out that wearing this, and this is a lady who was a forced child bride sold into basically slavery by her father when she was like 14, 15 years old, talking about this Annie Cyrus in Iran, death to America country over there. And she said that the hijab represents everything anti-woman, that the fact that this woman would put it on her head in Congress shows what she's all about. She's not about women's rights, because this represents the oppression of women at the most extreme level. She's very honest about it, and I appreciate that. But let me just ask you out there, let me ask kind of a question to some of the people out here listening. Citizens for Trump, people like Deplorable Resistance, what do you think about this? Do you think this hijab represents diversity or division or tyranny? Do you think that? Do you think Omar has anything to apologize? I don't want her to apologize, because I don't believe her to start with. I mean, why are the Democrats struggling, according to the New York Times, with this? Because they got no foundation of principles. That's what it is. But her support of the boycott of Israel movement and her attacks, back to the article here, New York Times words, on supporters of Israel have made her a complicated figure to defend. Complicated. I want you to remember that. Democratic leaders, as well as many in the rank and file, are choosing their words with caution. It says here that Democrats... So let me tell you what's becoming perfectly clear. What is becoming clear is that many in the rank and file of the Democratic Party are, guess what? They are anti-Israel. They are. Now, whether or not they're anti-Semitic, that might be, but they're absolutely anti-Israel. The Democratic Party that has had a huge support from Jewish Americans, I still don't understand why, especially now, why you would ever support them. They are anti-Israel. All you have to do, and you could Google it, but Google is of the devil. Go back and listen to the Democratic National Convention of a couple of years back, Obama's, I think, second term, where they literally were struggling because they removed from what had been in the Democratic platform that Israel was the capital. I mean, that Jerusalem was the capital of Israel, was in their platform. Every president has, since Israel's foundation, has run on that aspect that they would make Israel the capital, but only one had the gall and the courage and the cojones to do it, and that was one and only Donald J. Trump. Obama didn't do it, but getting back to the Democratic Party, they took it out of their platform, and the leaders realized it was one hell of a mistake. And so they pushed it back out there for a vote, and I'm telling you, go back and look at it. The rank and file voted against putting it back there, but as the Democrats would do, they ignored their voices and they put it back in, not because of principle, but because of political power and trying to hold on to it. So I ask you, if you're a rank and file Democrat, if you're a Jewish American Democrat, or any Jewish American for that matter, if you love Israel, or anybody who loves freedom, which is what Israel is all about, how can you possibly vote for these people? Because if you either vote Democrat or you don't vote for something, or you don't vote at all, you are voting to support Ilhan Omar and all of her anti-Semitic, hate-filled terrorist talk. That's what you're supporting. So don't try to sugarcoat it. Don't try to run from it. Accept it. That's what you're doing. Speaker Nancy Pelosi denounced the president for invoking the painful images of 9/11 for a political attack. You know, we don't play those images enough. Without mentioning Ms. Omar, and waited until Sunday. So this New York Times is criticizing Pelosi for waiting a few days to actually criticize the president and not mention Omar by name. 2 days after Mr. Trump's tweet to issue a statement saying she had asked Capitol Police Pelosi to assess the congressman's safety, so she wanted them to safety. Hey, did she really? Why don't she ask Hamas? They ought to be willing to provide for her safety. Representative Steny Hoyer, another winner, the House Democratic leader, waited 3 days before calling on the president to apologize to Miss Omar. Translation. Let me give you the translation of what the New York Times is saying. It took them some time, the Democrats, it took them some time to reveal how batshit crazy they really are. Because they you know, if they really believed, they stood on principle, they could have come right out and said it. But they waited because they're testing the poll numbers, that, you know, they're worried about the base, and they're just batshit crazy. They've been exposed. They have Trump derangement syndrome. That is the problem. To put us in photos, this is what Rashida Tlaib, Democrat from Michigan, who defended her sister, she said, they put us in photos when they want to show our party is diverse. So she's talking about the Democratic Party. She's saying, Tlaib is saying, when they want to show how diverse we are, they throw us out there, man. But she said, and the only other Muslim, we're talking about Tlaib, she said that she complained about Ms. Omar's lack of support, this is Tlaib, from the Democratic leadership. She says, however, when we asked to be at the table, when they said, like Tlaib, Omar said, we're second-class citizens when we try to be first-class citizens, that's what she's basically saying, to speak about issues that impact who we are, what we fight for, and why we ran in the first place, we are ignored. To truly honor our diversity is to never silence us. We're not trying to silence you. We're trying to expose what you're really saying. But she says why they truly ran. Well, why did you truly run? What was the purpose? It wasn't to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. I can tell you that right now. And by diversity, have you ever heard of e pluribus unum, out of the many one? We're supposed to get on the same page here and defend the Constitution. You're supposed to live up to the oath you took. But I don't think that has anything to do with it. In many respects, back to the article, in many respects, Ms. Omar, check this out, represents a new direction for the Democratic Party. Sadly, that is true. Her allies, this is back New York Times words, her allies on the left argue that Mr. Trump's war with Ms. Omar is a defining issue for the party. If that is true, What do we do? I can tell you what we better do. We better, it doesn't matter where you're listening from out there. If you care about the Constitution of the United States, put Trump aside for a minute. If you care about the founding of this country, if you care about the rule of law, if you care about our slogans, e pluribus unum, if you care about innocent until proven guilty, if you care about basic human rights, all the things that a lot of the left claims they're for, let me tell you what you better do. You better man the political ramparts. You better come on side of the MAGA agenda, putting America first, making America great again, keeping America great, whether you love Trump or hate it. If you're supporting this nonsense, then what's going to ultimately happen if we don't man the real political ramparts? We're going to have to man the actual ramparts and defend this country with blood once again. I'm not advocating for that. I'm simply saying that is the trend we are heading in. But I want you to listen to this next paragraph that I'm about to read you very, very carefully. Let me take a sip here. This is a very important paragraph. If you don't get anything else out of the show today, lean in and listen to this. Even if you hate Trump, lean in and listen to this, because this will tell you, if I've been saying all along, the progressives will tell you what they truly believe and what they want to do and what direction they want to take the country in. If you would just listen to them, they have been emboldened more than ever by President Trump. This is coming to you from a guy named Waleed Shahid. He's a spokesman for Justice Democrats. You need to look them up. Check them out. I did a show on them almost a year ago now. A liberal advocacy group that helped elect Miss Omar. They were behind her, and many others. Also Ocasio-Cortez and others. All right, this is coming from that leader of that group, Waleed Shahid. He says, this, talking about this fight over Omar, is a proxy for who counts as an American and who doesn't. And that it is a fight that the Democratic Party needs to be leading on. The Democratic Party can't run away from the fight regarding Ilhan Omar. In other words, they need to defend her. Because, listen up, because she represents the country. This is what they truly believe. This is not nonsense. It is nonsense, but this is the nonsense they believe. That Ilhan Omar represents the country. In the story between Make America Great Again, back to Mr. Shahid's words, and the new America we are becoming, she is a pivotal character. I'm going to read that last part again. In the story between Make America Great Again or the new America we are becoming, she is a pivotal character. So she is central to their plans. This lady who said somebody did something when it comes to 9/11, who wants to get rid of our greatest ally and friend in the Middle East and maybe in the world, Israel, who her cohort, we posted it earlier, Habib posted in her own office in Congress a post-it note obliterating Israel from the map. There it is, Talib. These names are hard for me. Let me just ask you, can you say Sharia law? And then people say, oh, that word is, no, it's not overused. Because that's what they're promoting. They believe in Sharia supremacy. As my friend Annie Cyrus said in the interview I talked about, these ladies swore on the Quran. On the Quran, you cannot be about the Constitution, according to her, and she knows a hell of a lot more about it than me. She lived it. You can't possibly be for the U.S. Constitution and swear your allegiance on the Quran, because the Quran specifically talks about Sharia law and that there is no law, that man's law is not supreme to God's law, which is Sharia law. So if you care about the Constitution, you can't support these people. You might support various aspects of what they're saying. They may make some interesting points. But to vote for people like Omar, Ocasio-Cortez, dare I say Bernie Sanders, who says, I'm Jewish, yet he opposes the Jewish state. He called them extremists in a further version of that clip we played. Go back and look at it yourself. He called the current state of Israel extremist. This is a guy who claims Jewish ancestry. I ask again, why would any Jewish American that loves Israel vote for these fools? It perplexes me. Back to the article. Mr. Trump appears to agree, according to the New York Times, using Ms. Omar as his foil. I think she's been up there on her own. He and his team are deploying the same anti-immigrant and anti-Muslim rhetoric for the 2020 re-election campaign that they used to ride to the White House in 2016. And I think the president can speak to this better than I ever could. Could we play what the president might have to say about this?
The Democrats have to now decide whether they will continue defrauding the public with ridiculous bullshit.
Amen, brother. Amen, President Trump, because that's exactly what the New York Times is saying here. Anti-immigrant. Where in the world, in the HELL hockey sticks, is President Trump anti-immigrant? He is anti-criminal immigration. He's anti-coming here illegally. He keeps telling you about and he's even been criticizing people like Ann Coulter about this. He talks about having a big, wide, lovely door for legal immigration. Last Friday, I think it was, you need to go back and check out that show. You want to see a great show. I had two guests on, one a female, one a male, that were legal. Ricardo in jail, thank you so much for being on here. They come from totally different places on this great planet Earth, but they came to the same conclusion that America was going to be their country of choice. They did it the legal way. It was quite an arduous struggle, but they got through it. They now have joined the Republican Party of all things, immigrants, imagine that, and they support President Trump. Go back and look, and their reasons are some of them the same, some of them different, but they came to similar conclusions. President Trump has never been anti-immigrant. Maybe he should be. There are people that support him that think he should be. Stop all immigration for some time. I'm not one of them. But President Trump, make no mistake, has never been anti-immigrant. And anti-Muslim, good Lord, they want to use the ban on travel from certain countries that were overrun with terrorists, that support terrorists. It had nothing to do with anti-Muslim. He's anti-terrorism coming to the United States of America. That is what he was doing. And keep in mind what was happening at the time. We were getting burned and blown up all over the world. It's crazy. Things have calmed down a little bit, but I don't know, maybe not. That's just my opinion. The congressman has said, she is talking about Omar, the congresswoman has said she has experienced an increase in direct threats on my life since President's tweet on Friday. That's possibly true, and if that's true, I would tell you right now, I don't support that. I don't support that. I support whipping her at the ballot box. That's what I support. But she says this is endangering lives. In a statement on Sunday, it has to stop. Has to stop endangering lives. Wow. Somebody did something somewhere. And those people that did that support you. I know that a lot of them came from Saudi Arabia, but make no mistake, Ilhan Omar is supported and supports terrorist organization. It's just a fact. It's not my fact. It is the facts.
So to me, I say raise hell.
That's what she's telling you right now. That was her words. Here, I don't have much time left. There's another story I wouldn't mind getting to, but anyway, we're going to do the best we can because this is a very important. Centrist Democrats have more complex relationships with Ms. Omar. Her leftist brand of politics, according to the New York Times, does not go over well in the swing districts that delivered Democrats the House majority. Her views on Israel make many Jews, an important component of Democratic base, deeply uneasy. Wow. Deeply. You want to wipe them off the map. Why would they be uneasy about that? And her insinuations that American policy toward the Jewish state is driven by money and it is all about the Benjamins, baby. These are what she said. This is the New York Times quoting her. She wrote on Twitter, have been charges of anti-Semitism prompting her to apologize. Translation. Let me give you a translation of what the New York Times is saying here. They may be, what these Democrats are worried about is they may be being exposed for who they really are. And that Jewish people may, with all due apologies, I'm trying to diversify here. I looked up Yiddish, and I'm not one that knows, so I'm hoping I'm saying this right, because this is what the New York Times is afraid that the Jewish people, Jewish voters and Americans will do. Wecken. It means to wake up. That's what it means. And I hope I said it correctly. I mean it with love. Wecken, man. You need to wake up. You need to wake up and see who your friends really are, and damn sure need to see who your enemies are. And I can tell you the Democratic Party, not all Democrats, I say it, but I don't believe I have to say this, but I'm going to say it anyways. I want to be clear. I'm not saying every Democrat. I'm saying the leaders of the party of JFK have become the party of Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Nancy Pelosi, and Ocasio-Cortez. That is the modern Democratic Party. It just is. And it breaks my heart to say that because I grew up in a Democratic family. I got veckin. I woke up. And you need to wake up, people, and realize what is happening. That's one of the reasons I'm battling ignorance and apathy as hard as I can every day. Bam, bam, bam here on John Martin Talks. And I'm going to keep doing it, whether my blood pressure goes up or not. Because I'm going to keep doing it as long as I'm privileged to have this microphone, and I'm privileged here. But it goes on to talk about the moderate colleagues, if there were any in the struggling here. But this is a guy here, let me read his name. Representative Josh Gottenmeier, a centrist Democrat, he's Jewish by the way, from New Jersey and a strong supporter of Israel, spoke carefully when asked about Ms. Omar. This is what he said. The response to different points of view in our country must never be threats of physical harm or violence. How about that? Let me just ask you, is this guy just disingenuous, or is he a coward? Because I think he's a coward to do that, to not call him out. I think about this, and I think about Martin Luther King. And one of the great things that I say is Martin Luther King, and I hope I don't botch it up, but he said it various ways and forms of fashion. He talked about the evil, our times, the times he was living in, will not be judged by the evil that men do, because basically they're going to do it, but by the good people who sit by or stand by and do nothing. And so I'm telling you, if you're a Democrat out there, a Democratic leader, a Democratic rank and file member, these times are going to be judged not by the idiocy that these people and evil like Omar and all the rest of what they do, but by you who stand by and don't say anything. I'm calling them out, but I expect other people to call them out. And this gentleman here, he's a Jewish American representative supporting Israel. How dare he not call these people out? All right, so we're going to move on here. I got a few minutes left. Yeah, I got enough probably to cover this story. This is from the LA Times, man. I'm going coast to coast today, baby. And my subtitle of this is Disingenuous versus Bluffing. Are you being disingenuous or are you just bluffing? Here's the actual title. California hits back as Trump threatens to dump immigrants in sanctuary cities. California Democrats this week stepped up their attacks on President Donald Trump over his threat to send immigrants to so-called sanctuary cities. I thought they call themselves sanctuary cities. Even as experts suggest the president's plan could backfire and lure more immigrants or migrants to the north. No, it's always Trump's fault. No matter what he does, it's his fault, right? Threat, though. A threat, man. How's it a threat? I thought you wanted to give people sanctuary. Why would you vote to have a sanctuary city if you don't want to give sanctuary? I mean, what is the point? Are you just saying you're making political points? President Trump is calling their bluff because they're disingenuous, really. They're basically just dishonest. But Governor Gavin Newsom labeled the president's proposed policy nonsensical, saying Trump campaigned on deporting more immigrants, but his latest plan looks as if he intends to allow some migrants to remain in the United States. So he's actually calling Trump out for, being disingenuous and wanting to actually allow illegal immigrants to stay in America. And he said that with a straight face. I mean, these people know no shame, man. So go on with what Newsom had to say. He says, which one is it, Mr. President? He said, the fraudulent flaw in logic needs to be considered. Your fraudulent flaw. So he's saying the president is illogical. Now, what about the logical conclusion, sir, that you came when you were mayor of San Francisco? Yes, you've made a conclusion that there's crap on the streets. There's so much people squatting and potting, turning what used to be the jewel of California and the country, San Francisco, into the stool of the state. But your logical conclusion is not to clean them up, get them out, do something about it. It's to make a map so we know where to step over. I mean, what kind of logic is that? So people say, you know, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Newsom, there'd be shit on our streets. Well, let me give you a map right now so you can dodge it. That's his logic. Dodge it. The dodge it logic. That is what the logic of the Democrats is, just to dodge it. The governor insisted the federal government is already dumping people in California by processing migrants legally seeking asylum at the border. First of all, they're not, because they've already violated international law by not seeking asylum in Mexico. Check it out. But he goes on to say the border of California before they have time to connect with their sponsors in the U.S. Okay, so they're dumping people, according to Gavin Newsom. Man, how insensitive is that? They're bringing people to the promised land, to a city who has said, we welcome you, we want you, we need you, to a state that has said the same thing. Literally voted, basically, leaders into power that are saying, you know, that tear down the immoral wall and let everybody in, and it's just the right thing to do. Nancy Pelosi, my God, man, another fellow Californian, Mr. Newsom, I hate to tell you, but she said MS-13 gang members were divinely inspired. These are the people that California, and I know there's some good folks out in California, and they listen to the show. I appreciate it, like to hear from. I feel for you, I really do. You might want to get out, because I think they need to build a wall around California as well, but that's insensitive, I realize. Maybe I should rethink that. But dumping people. How can you possibly be dumping people when you're bringing them to the paradise that you've created for them? Just give them a poop map and say, you know, don't walk here and welcome. I don't get it, man. I just don't get it. What is the problem with bringing people where you say you already want them? But several mayors, of course, have also reacted. L.A. Mayor Eric Garcetti, who I think he announced I'm formally not running for president, tweeted that immigrants are people, not pawns. Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf, I think it's called Shaft, you get in the shaft in Oakland, trust me, told Trump to stop fanning hate and division. Hate and division, my God, he's simply giving you what you've been saying you want. And San Jose Mayor Sam Liccardo called for sensible solutions. Sensible solutions. Well, I got a sensible solution. If you truly are a sanctuary city, if true that you really are a sanctuary state and you voted for that, then you should be eager to take these people. If everything that Trump is doing and the rest of us here in the red states, if we're such racist SOBs, if the MAGA hat really is the new Ku Klux Klan hat, which it's not, but that's the way they treat it, then shouldn't you get all these people to sanctuary? I mean, if we're out here, think about how bad, it is really getting bad out here. Because when Nigerian princes go to beating up people and wearing MAGA hats, man, it ain't safe for nobody. So maybe they should take all of them out to California. Smollett, man, you need to go to Hollywood, man. De Blasio, you know, he's a left coaster, but de Blasio, when asked about this, Mayor Conrad de Blasio said, we'll sue. So in other words, he's so wanting to provide sanctuary that if you threaten them with actually giving people that need sanctuary, we're going to sue. I mean, these people are disingenuous. They're just liars. That's all there is to it. L.A. County Supervisor Hilda Solis said in a statement that the only way to address immigration in this country is through bipartisan, comprehensive immigration reform. Let me check. I've got a few more minutes. So in other words, you hear this bipartisan, comprehensive immigration reform. That's all we really need. She's basically just saying keep the status quo and let it flow, just not here. You know, we know that it flows downhill. We got a map showing you what it flows. But don't dump those people. I agree with you. They're people. You're the one making them pawns. Think about this. People versus pawns, like the one mayor said. They are pawns. The Democrats are making them pawns because they don't really give a damn about these people. If they did, they would be for building the wall because it's better for all. No, they create a false sense of security saying we're a sanctuary city. We're a sanctuary state. Think about think about not only the hypocrisy, but the downright mean-spiritedness and I would say evilness of this. To say to someone who is living in the hellhole of Guatemala, the shithole of El Salvador, yeah, I said it, to tell them, look, LA is sanctuary. Chicago is sanctuary. You know, New York City is sanctuary. The whole state of California is sanctuary. To tell these people, to give them the hope that if you can just get here, we will provide you with sanctuary. And then when President Trump says, okay, we'll let them in, and take them to the very places you go, we'll sue. We ain't going to let them in here. I mean, good Lord, man. That is evil. That is just mean-spirited to give someone hope. And then when they travel all across here to snatch it away from them, and they have audacity to talk about somebody's Christianity. It just, as you can tell, it pisses me off, man. It really does. Well, here's this last one. The president, according to the New York Times, has grown increasingly frustrated that more than 2 years into his administration, his policies have failed. President Trump's policies have failed, according to New York, to deter migrants from reaching the border or for the most part prevent their release from detention. He's trying to let them out, my God's sakes, into sanctuary inside the United States. Last month, U.S. authorities apprehended 92,607 people at the border, the highest monthly total in more than a decade. And yet they're going to criticize his policies, and I talked about this last week. But the New York Times, man, Trump's policies haven't even been implemented. He's implemented Barack Obama's policies, and that's what's got him in trouble. His policy was first and foremost to build the wall, and they've been fighting him. Let me just tell you, New York Times, man, you talk about disingenuous. Do your damn job. If you'd have done your job all this time and actually reported what was really happening at the border and how it was really impacting America, perhaps we wouldn't be in the situation we're in right now. Perhaps if you'd have quit arguing over semantics of a crisis and said, yes, it was a state of emergency, because now they're starting to say it. And really, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. I talked to my Hispanic brethren out there, man. And I know a lot of you are starting to wake up. You're getting Vinic or whatever coming awake, and you're tuning into the show. I greatly appreciate it. I got nothing against Hispanic people. I admire them. I'm ready to culture appropriate. I love Mexican food. I'm a culture appropriator, man. Give me your culture, period. I'll appropriate every bit of it I can get. E pluribus unum. I'm all about diversity into one. Every bit of it. But the neighborhoods, the areas that are going to be impacted the quickest and the worst are predominantly Hispanic neighborhoods. They're the ones, their schools are going to be overwhelmed. Their hospitals are being overwhelmed. And now you got leaders that a lot of you have elected in places like LA that are now being exposed. President Trump has called their bluff and shown just how disingenuous they truly are. Because it's one thing to say, we want sanctuary. We're going to give you sanctuary until you actually show up and need it, and then persona non grata. That is evil, man. It just plain and simple. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to John Martin Talks, like our page, share it. We're just on the threshold of getting over 10,000 followers. I thank all the other pages out there like Citizens for Trump and Deplorable Resistance and many others that are lining up to join us. Thank you so much. But above all else, ladies and gentlemen, have a blessed day.